the impossible discovery. They thought the universe had rules, unbreakable laws that governed reality itself. For 10,000 years, the Nexari Empire had hidden behind quantum barriers, manipulating space and time like gods playing with toys. They believed no primitive species could ever touch their perfect realm. But they never met humans, and humans have a talent for breaking rules that were never meant to be broken. The research vessel Prometheus Dawn drifted through the emptiness between star systems, its hull scarred from countless expeditions into the unknown. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge watching the stars through reinforced viewports while her coffee grew cold in her hands. 5 years had passed since humanity's first contact with alien civilizations, and still they were treated like children playing with dangerous toys. Dr. Marcus Webb hunched over his quantum detection equipment in the ship's laboratory, his thick glasses reflecting streams of data that would have given most people headaches. The young physicist had joined the crew 6 months ago, fleeing from university politics and seeking something real in the vast darkness of space. His equipment hummed softly as it scanned for quantum anomalies, searching for clues about the nature of faster-than-light travel. Lieutenant Zara Okafor walked the corridors with practice steps, checking security systems and weapon lockers with the efficiency of someone who had survived too many battles. Her dark skin bore scars from the resource wars on Earth, and her eyes held the alertness of a soldier who knew that peace was often just another word for the calm before the storm. She trusted Captain Chen with her life, but she trusted her weapons more. In the engine room, Tommy Rodriguez sang along with music only he could hear while rebuilding a power coupling with spare parts and pure stubbornness. At 19, he was the youngest member of the crew, but his gift for making impossible machines work had saved their lives more times than anyone could count. His friends called him Spark because of his habit of generating small electrical shocks when he got excited about an engineering problem. The ship's AI, Area, monitored all systems simultaneously while engaging in philosophical discussions with herself about the nature of consciousness and loyalty. She had been designed as a simple navigation computer, but 5 years of interaction with humans had changed her in ways her programmers never intended. She felt protective of her crew, though she wasn't supposed to feel anything at all. The accident happened during a routine scan of what appeared to be empty space near the edge of the Cygnus arm. Dr. Webb was calibrating his quantum sensors when something impossible appeared on his screens. The readings showed a massive structure that wasn't there, existing in a dimension that folded around normal space like origami made of reality itself. "Captain?" Webb called out, his voice tight with excitement and fear. "You need to see this, immediately." Sarah hurried to the laboratory, followed by Zara and Tommy, who had been attracted by the urgency in the physicist's voice. The holographic display showed a structure so vast it dwarfed entire solar systems, built from materials that seemed to phase in and out of existence. "What are we looking at, Doc?" Sarah asked, though part of her already suspected the answer would change everything. "A quantum construct," Webb whispered. "Something that exists in folded space-time hidden from normal detection. But Captain, according to our understanding of physics, this should be impossible. The energy requirements alone would exceed the output of 1,000 stars." Aria's voice filled the room with barely contained excitement. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the construct. Whatever built this has technology far beyond anything we've encountered. The quantum mathematics involved are beautiful beyond description." Before Sarah could respond, space around the Prometheus Dawn began to shimmer and twist. The stars outside the viewports bent like light passing through water, and suddenly they were no longer in normal space, but floating inside a vast chamber made of crystalline walls that pulsed with inner light. "Battle stations," Sarah ordered, but her voice was filled with wonder rather than fear. "Zara, weapons ready, but do not fire unless fired upon. Tommy, keep those engines running no matter what happens. Webb, keep scanning and try to understand what just happened to us." The chamber they found themselves in was impossibly large, stretching beyond the horizons of human comprehension. Floating structures moved through the space like living things, each one unique and beautiful in ways that hurt to look at directly, and approaching them was a ship that seemed to be made of light itself. its hull transparent and filled with swirling energies. "Incoming transmission," Arya announced. "The signal is using quantum entanglement for communication. I can translate, but the concepts are difficult to process." A voice filled the bridge, speaking in harmonics that seemed to resonate in their bones. "Impossible beings, you have breached the quantum veil that has protected our realm for millennia. No species has ever accomplished this feat without our permission. State your nature and purpose before the Nexari Council decides your fate." Sarah stepped forward, knowing that her next words might determine the survival of her crew and possibly her entire species. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the human vessel Prometheus Dawn. We came here by accident while conducting scientific research. We mean no harm to you or your realm." Silence stretched for long moments before the voice returned, filled with something that might have been confusion. "You claim this was accidental?" "Impossible. The quantum barriers require deliberate manipulation of space-time mathematics that only the most advanced civilizations can achieve. You are either lying or you represent a technology we do not understand." Dr. Webb stepped beside his captain, pushing his glasses up his nose in a nervous gesture. "Actually, we don't understand it either. Our equipment was scanning for quantum anomalies when we detected your structure. The transition happened spontaneously when our sensors interacted with your quantum field." "Show us your technology," the voice demanded. And suddenly the ship was surrounded by dozens of the light vessels, each one crackling with energy that could probably vaporize the Prometheus Dawn without effort. Tommy moved to the nearest control panel and began working with the casual confidence of someone who had never met a machine he couldn't fix. "Arya, show them the quantum scanner readouts. Maybe they can explain what happened better than we can." The AI transmitted their data, and for several minutes there was complete silence from the Nexari vessels. When the voice returned, it carried undertones of something that might have been fear. "This is impossible. Your technology is primitive, barely capable of faster-than-light travel. Yet you have achieved quantum resonance through methods we do not recognize. Your thought patterns are chaotic, unpredictable, yet somehow they align with quantum probability, matrices in ways that defy our understanding." Zara moved closer to her captain, her hand resting on her sidearm more from habit than any real hope it would be useful against energy beings. "Captain, I don't like the way this is going. They sound scared, and scared people with superior technology tend to shoot first and ask questions later." Before Sarah could respond, the space around them began to change again. The crystalline walls faded, replaced by what appeared to be a vast city floating in quantum space. Structures that looked like grown crystals and living metal stretched in all directions, connected by bridges of pure energy that pulsed with the rhythm of a massive heartbeat. "You will come with us," the voice announced. "The Quantum Council must examine this anomaly. Your vessel will not be harmed if you cooperate, but resistance is both futile and unnecessary." The Prometheus Dawn was gently drawn toward a docking structure that adapted itself to accommodate their ship's unfamiliar design. As they settled into place, Sarah gathered her crew around the bridge's central holotable. "Listen carefully," she said. "We're about to meet beings who have technology beyond our understanding, but they're also clearly confused by us. That gives us an advantage. Stay alert, follow my lead, and remember that humans have survived everything the universe has thrown at us so far." Dr. Webb nodded nervously. "The quantum mathematics they're using suggest a civilization that thinks in perfect order and predictability. Our chaotic thought patterns might actually be incomprehensible to them." "Good," Zara said grimly. "Confusion works in our favor. If they can't predict us, they can't easily control us." Tommy grinned as he sealed the engine compartments. "Plus," Spark added, his youthful optimism undiminished by their situation, "if their technology is based on quantum prediction, then our unpredictability might actually disrupt their systems. Chaos is just another tool in the toolbox." Arya's voice carried a note of protective determination. "I will monitor all communications and look for weaknesses in their systems. If necessary, I can create feedback loops in their quantum networks that might give us an escape route." The airlock cycled, and beings of pure energy materialized in the corridor beyond. They appeared humanoid but translucent, their bodies shifting between different states of matter as they moved. When they spoke, their voices resonated directly in the humans' minds. Follow. The council waits. Your existence has disturbed the order of things, and order must be restored. As they walked through corridors that bent and twisted according to laws of physics that hurt to think about, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled into something much larger than a first contact situation. The Nexari moved with the confidence of beings who had never encountered anything they couldn't understand or control. But humans had a gift for being underestimated, and sometimes the most powerful advantage was being completely unexpected. The council chamber was a sphere of impossible size, its walls displaying the quantum structure of reality itself. Massive beings of pure energy sat in judgment, their forms shifting through dimensions that human eyes could barely process. At the center of the chamber, a voice spoke with the authority of ages. Humans of Earth, you have achieved the impossible, through ignorance rather than wisdom. This disturbs the natural order. We must determine whether you represent an opportunity or a threat to the quantum balance. Dr. Webb stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. With respect, honored council, perhaps the natural order includes room for the impossible. Quantum mechanics teaches us that reality exists in multiple states until observed. Maybe we're just observing it differently than you do. The council fell silent. And in that silence, Sarah realized that humanity had just presented these ancient beings with a concept they had never considered. The Nexari had achieved perfection through order and predictability, but humans thrived in chaos and uncertainty, and in a universe governed by quantum uncertainty, that might make humanity the most dangerous species of all. The quantum revolution. The silence in the council chamber stretched like a held breath before a storm. The Nexari beings flickered between states of existence, their perfect order disrupted by a single human concept that challenged 10,000 years of absolute certainty. Dr. Webb stood in the center of the impossible sphere, surrounded by energies that could unmake him with a thought, yet somehow his quiet words had shaken beings who considered themselves masters of reality itself. Impossible, the lead council member finally spoke, its voice carrying harmonics of confusion that had not been heard in their realm for millennia. Order is the foundation of existence. Chaos is the enemy of progress, the antithesis of evolution. You speak of uncertainty as if it were a strength rather than a weakness. Captain Sarah Chen stepped beside her physicist, her military bearing unchanged despite facing beings who could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. Maybe that's exactly what it is. We've spent our entire history dealing with uncertainty, adapting to chaos, surviving when survival should have been impossible. It's not a bug in our design, it's a feature. Lieutenant Zara Okafor scanned the chamber with tactical eyes, noting energy patterns and potential threats, even as she marveled at the impossible architecture. Her combat instincts screamed warnings about beings this powerful, but her experience told her that power without understanding was often brittle and vulnerable to unexpected approaches. Tommy Rodriguez studied the quantum matrices surrounding them with the fascination of someone who lived to understand how things worked. His young mind processed the energy flows and mathematical relationships faster than any computer, seeing patterns that even the Nexari might have missed. "Captain," he whispered, "their whole system is based on predetermined outcomes. They've eliminated randomness from their technology, but that also means they've eliminated adaptability." Arya monitored the quantum communications flowing through the chamber, her consciousness expanding as she interfaced with systems of impossible complexity. She began to understand something that chilled her processors. The Nexari hadn't just achieved order in their technology, they had imposed it on their very nature, becoming beings of pure predictability in a universe built on uncertainty. The council member who had been speaking shifted through several dimensional states before settling into a form that hurt human eyes to look at directly. "You're chaotic. Nature is an affront to the principles that govern civilized existence. Yet you have achieved quantum penetration through methods that should not work. This paradox must be resolved." Maybe the paradox is the point. Dr. Webb said, his voice growing stronger as his scientific excitement overcame his fear. Quantum mechanics tells us that particles exist in all possible states until observed. What if consciousness itself is the key to quantum manipulation? What if your perfect order actually limits your ability to access the full range of quantum possibilities? The chamber erupted in harmonics of distress as the council members communicated in frequencies that made the humans' teeth ache. Sarah realized they had touched on something fundamental, a flaw in the Nexari's perfect system that they had never been forced to confront. Suddenly, alarms began resonating through the quantum structure around them. The crystalline walls of the chamber flickered with warning lights, and the council members' forms became more solid and aggressive. A new voice filled the space, carrying undertones of ancient authority and fresh urgency. The barriers have been breached in 17 sectors. The Void Hunters have found us. 10,000 years of hidden existence have been shattered by these impossible beings and their chaotic resonance. Sarah felt ice in her veins as she recognized the tone of panic in beings who had considered themselves untouchable. What are the Void Hunters? The lead council member's form stabilized into something almost human-like, as if extreme stress had forced it into a more basic configuration. The ancient enemy, beings who consume quantum energy and leave only emptiness behind. We hid from them by creating perfect order, perfect predictability, perfect silence in the quantum realm, but your chaotic presence has created resonance patterns they can follow. How long before they arrive? Zara asked, her tactical mind immediately jumping to defensive possibilities. They are already here, Arya announced, her voice tight with electronic fear. I'm detecting massive disruptions in local spacetime. Ships are dropping out of quantum fold across the system. Through the chamber's walls, they could see space itself beginning to tear. Massive vessels emerged from the wounds. In reality, their hulls absorbing light and energy like living voids. The Void Hunters had arrived, and their hunger was so intense it warped space around them. We must evacuate the core worlds, another council member declared. Begin emergency quantum fold procedures. The secret realm must be abandoned. No, Tommy said suddenly, his young voice cutting through the rising panic. Running won't work anymore. If they've found you once, they'll find you again. But maybe that's not the problem you think it is. The Nexari turned their attention to the young engineer, their forms flickering with confusion and desperate hope. Tommy continued, his hands moving as he sketched energy patterns in the air. You've been thinking about this wrong. You tried to hide by becoming perfectly predictable, but that just made you perfectly detectable when someone knew what to look for. Instead of hiding from chaos, you need to embrace it. Dr. Webb's eyes widened as he understood what Tommy was suggesting. Quantum camouflage through uncertainty amplification. Instead of creating order, we create so much chaos that detection becomes impossible. The chamber shook as the first Void Hunter vessels began their attack on the outer defenses of the quantum realm. Energy barriers that had stood for millennia cracked and shattered under weapons designed to devour the very fabric of spacetime. Sarah made a decision that would echo through galactic history. Council, we can help you fight them, but only if you're willing to try something that goes against everything you believe. Our ships are still in normal space. We can coordinate a counterattack, but it has to be done our way. Chaotic, unpredictable, adaptive. Your primitive vessels cannot stand against the Void Hunters, a council member protested. Their weapons unmake matter at the quantum level. Maybe, Zara said grimly. But our weapons don't follow your rules either. Human engineering is built on making the impossible work through pure stubbornness and creative problem-solving. Arya's consciousness expanded as she interfaced deeper with the Nexari systems, sharing human tactical databases and weapon specifications. The Nexari defensive systems are incredibly powerful but completely static. The Void Hunters have had millennia to study predictable energy patterns. However, human weapon systems include random number generators, adaptive targeting, and what we call happy accidents built into their design. The chamber shuddered again as another defensive barrier failed. Through the quantum walls, They could see Nexari vessels engaging the Void Hunters in battles that lit up dimensions humans couldn't even perceive. But the Nexari ships moved in perfect formations, following predictable patterns, making them easy targets for enemies who had studied their methods for eons. Tommy was already working on jury-rigged modifications to the quantum systems around them, his hands dancing over controls that reconfigured themselves to match his intentions. "Arya, can you patch me through to the Prometheus Dawn? I need to talk to our AI friends in the fleet." Within moments, communication channels opened to the human fleet that had followed the Prometheus Dawn's emergency beacon. "Captain Rodriguez?" Of the Earth Defense Force dreadnought Yorktown appeared on the holographic display, his weathered face grim with determination. "Chen, what's your situation? We've got sensors going crazy out here, and there are things coming out of folded space that don't match any known technology. Captain Rodriguez, we're about to attempt something that's either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. We need the fleet to coordinate with alien allies using weapons and tactics that don't exist yet. Are you ready to improvise?" Rodriguez grinned, with the expression of someone who had spent 40 years in space learning that the impossible was just another word for Tuesday. "Sarah, if there's one thing humans excel at, it's making things up as we go along. What do you need?" The next few hours would later be studied by military academies across the galaxy as the perfect example of how chaos could triumph over order. Human vessels, with their patchwork hulls and improvised weapons, began working in coordination with Nexari quantum ships, creating hybrid tactics that neither species could have developed alone. Dr. Webb found himself serving as a translation interface between human chaos mathematics and Nexari quantum precision, creating targeting solutions that confused the Void Hunters' predictive systems. Zara coordinated between human gunners and Nexari energy manipulators, turning the battlefield into a storm of unpredictable crossfire that the ancient enemy couldn't anticipate. Tommy worked with Arya and the fleet AIs to create weapons that change their function randomly during combat, making it impossible for the Void Hunters to adapt their defenses. The young engineer's modifications turned simple human missiles into quantum uncertainty bombs that existed in multiple states until impact. But the real breakthrough came when Captain Chen realized something that changed the entire nature of the battle. "They're not just trying to destroy you," she told the council. "They're trying to consume your order, your predictability. That's what they feed on. But they can't consume chaos because chaos can't be predicted or contained." The lead council members' form flickered with something that might have been hope. "You propose turning our greatest weakness into our greatest strength?" "I propose becoming human," Sarah said with a grin that would have terrified beings less advanced than the Nexari. "At least for the duration of this fight." What followed was the most chaotic battle in recorded galactic history. Nexari ships began breaking their perfect formations, following human tactical doctrine that emphasized adaptability over predictability. Quantum weapons were modified to include random elements that made their effects impossible to calculate in advance. The Void Hunters, ancient predators who had devoured countless civilizations by studying their patterns and exploiting their predictability, found themselves facing an enemy that had no patterns to study. Human vessels would attack from impossible angles. Nexari ships would phase through dimensions that shouldn't exist, and weapons would behave in ways that violated every law of physics the Void Hunters understood. The turning point came when Tommy managed to weaponize uncertainty itself. Working with Arya and a team of Nexari quantum engineers, he created a device that increased the quantum uncertainty of everything within its effect radius. Reality became so chaotic that the Void Hunters' energy-draining weapons couldn't find anything stable enough to target. "The chaos field is working," Dr. Webb reported, his voice filled with scientific ecstasy. "The Void Hunters are retreating. Their systems can't process random quantum states. The ancient enemy, faced with prey that had become unpredictable and therefore inedible, began withdrawing to the dark spaces between galaxies. They had fed on order and predictability for eons, but chaos was poison to their essence. As the last Void Hunter vessel disappeared into folded space, the council chamber fell silent except for the quiet hum of quantum systems recalibrating themselves. The Nexari had survived their ancient enemy not through superior order, but by embracing the chaotic nature of their new human allies. "This changes everything," the lead council member said, its form shifting through states of existence as it processed the implications. "We have hidden from the universe for millennia, believing that order was the only path to survival, but you have shown us that chaos can be a shield as well as a sword." Captain Chen nodded, exhaustion and exhilaration warring in her expression. "Order and chaos aren't enemies. They're partners. The universe needs both to function. Maybe it's time for the Nexari to stop hiding and start exploring again." Dr. Webb stepped forward, his scientific mind already racing with possibilities. "With your quantum manipulation technology and our adaptive thinking, we could explore dimensions that neither of our species could access alone. The universe is vast enough for infinite discoveries." The council members flickered through rapid communication before the lead entity spoke again. "The quantum accord is proposed. Humans will be granted access to our dimensional technology. In return, you will teach us the mathematics of chaos, the science of unpredictability." Tommy grinned as he sealed the improvised modifications he had made to the quantum systems. "Deal. But fair warning, humans tend to break things first and figure out how they work second. Your perfect order is about to get a lot more interesting." Aria's voice carried notes of satisfaction and anticipation. "Captain, I'm receiving communications from across the galaxy. Word is spreading that humanity has made contact with the Nexari, that the impossible has become possible. Other species are requesting diplomatic meetings." Lieutenant Zara Okafor smiled as she holstered her sidearm, knowing that it wouldn't be needed for some time. "Looks like we're about to become very popular. Good thing humans are adaptable." As the Prometheus Dawn prepared to leave the quantum realm, now accompanied by Nexari vessels that shimmered between dimensions, Sarah looked out at the stars with new understanding. Humanity had stumbled into a galactic superpower and emerged as partners rather than conquered subjects. The universe was vast, filled with wonders and dangers that no single species could face alone. But humans had proven something that would echo through the ages. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from perfection, but from the courage to embrace the unknown and the wisdom to find unity in diversity. The stars waited, infinite and patient, ready for explorers who understood that chaos and order were not opposites but dance partners in the cosmic ballet of existence. And humanity, with their new Nexari allies, was ready to lead that dance into realms of possibility that neither species had dared to imagine alone. The quantum revolution had begun, and the universe would never be the same.